Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Hopefully, you had a good lunch break. And as he mentioned, like we are going to take you through detective story. So definitely, I hope it will keep you awake. Let's move on then. Would like to introduce myself and Nigel. We are going to take through this journey. Myself, Mangesh Jathar, senior data engineer in Mayop. So my previous experience working with various clients across US, UK, India, and most of the experience was data specific, like data modeling, data warehousing, cloud warehouse, pipelines, so all data stuff. I'll pass on to Nigel with this, and he will take you through first part of our journey about our PI hunting in Haystack. Here you go, Nigel. Yeah.
Thanks, Mangesh, and thanks for joining us in Track 2. My name is Nigel Quinlan. I'm a data engineer working on Mangesh's team as well. My journey to MYB is a bit different. I career switched kind of 4 years ago into like a software developer track. And yeah, found myself in the data engineering space and learning lots every day. So that's kind of what keeps me excited. So I'm going to set the scene for us today. I just wanted to set the scene though as well by acknowledging other people on the team with us that actually worked on this initiative as well that are not presenting today, but like just want to shout out, like Liz is in the audience, she worked on this, and others that are not here today as well. So thanks to everybody on the team. Today we're going to take you through a number of steps, kind of like an investigation, like let's think of it like an investigation, and hopefully you'll get some takeaways and kind of some thoughts to bring back to your company as well. Should we be doing the same thing? Maybe, maybe not. So I'm also going to talk a little bit about security and compliance, which kind of came up this morning for some of the talks. Like I'm thinking of the first talk on governance, for example, kind of came into mind. I'll do show of hands at some stage as well. Hopefully we might not see too many hands being raised. And then Mangesh is going to deep dive and talk about classifying PI, which will be interesting, and he's going to get really technical. I'll also stay a bit technical for Streamlit, and then we'll talk about our findings and next steps. So let's set the scene with some things about purpose, platform, and PI. So some of you may or may not know about MYOB. We're a large organization. We've been around for 30 years. Sorry, I get a bit nervous sometimes on stage. So our purpose is to help more Australian and New Zealand businesses start, survive, and succeed. And we've been around for 34 years doing that. For our data platform, you'll see up on the screen here, we've got the usual suspects. We've got Snowflake, we've got dbt, we've got Data Hub, we've got orchestration via Airflow. We've got the usual suspects for kind of bringing data into the platform as well. So we've got Batch, Firehose, and we've got Snowflake Share. So we've got lots of data sources. You'll see on the left, they come from our data producers, and they come into the data platform. So you might have something similar in your organization. We've got really good observability across this, but in terms of like our data stack, we're kind of just want to give you a slice of kind of the data where it comes from. So you'll see that we have a lot of data coming in from our data producers, 2.3 billion records for one of our product lines. We've got a lot of columns, so we've got 1 million columns coming in from across the organization into our Snowflake instance. We've got PI tag data, so we've got 13,000 columns that have some sort of PI associated with them. We've got a lot of data in terms of our overall instance. We've got 94 terabytes. And that's kind of just a slice of what we're dealing with in terms of scale. You can kind of compare your own organization with that. So I'm just going to take a deep breath. Yeah. So from a security and kind of compliance perspective, I just wanted to talk about kind of where this kind of initiative started from. So about a year ago, you might remember that in the media, there was kind of a report of an exploit that kind of was in the wild, and some Snowflake customers were mentioned in the press. We weren't actually involved directly, but what it did do is it got our GRC kind of asking questions. So GRC are our kind of governance, our risk and compliance teams, and they were asking us questions around like, what's our data posture look like? So we, as a team, we kind of had to respond to some kind of gnarly questions, and we kind of leaned in and we said, okay, let's look at our AWS kind of posture, let's look at our Snowflake posture, and let's see kind of what things could we do to kind of improve our current situation. So this is kind of what led to this initiative that Mangesh will kind of tell you kind of how we kind of implemented stuff in a moment. But just on the shared responsibility, I think it's important to think about all of us as being kind of good custodians of data at our organization. And that comes from different places. So we've got the legal people, the legal teams kind of giving us guidelines. We've got the policy people kind of telling us, well, this is what we should be doing. We've got governance people telling us, this is what, again, kind of best practice looks like. And we're kind of sit in the middle. We're kind of like the data infrastructure people, kind of try to make it happen, try to automate things, try and make it as easy and frictionless as possible for our other data stakeholders. And then we've got the data owners, and they play a really important part as well. They are the people that really have familiarity with the data. They are the people, I suppose, that we rely on to tag the data, and Mangesh will talk to you a little bit about that as well. And we see it as a shared responsibility. So here's my show of hands question for you today. I want people to kind of think honestly for a second, and I'm going to think about what Joe Reese was saying before lunch as well, where he asked how good is your data? Is it crap? Is it great? Would you be prepared to put an agentic AI, give it free rein on your data? And my question for you is how confident are people in the audience that you haven't got no unmasked PI? Now, what I mean by PI is as the MC was saying before, Simon was saying, PI is personal identifiable information. So this is your names of customers, names of internal team members. They could be addresses. They could be email addresses. How confident are you? And show of hands if you're 100% confident that you've got no unmasked PI in your data warehouse. Okay, one person who's probably lying. Okay. We're faced with the same situation. So our business question, our business problem that we wanted to help our stakeholders kind of solve was, how do we empower our domain owners, our domain members? How do we empower those people to check and see, do they have any unmasked PI in their data warehouse? That's kind of what we wanted to help them do. I'm going to pass over to Mangesh, and he's going to take us through how we went about that.
Thank you, Nigel. So thanks for the first part of journey. As he mentioned, we have a big data lake, terabytes of data. We have PI columns. To take you through the challenge here. We wanted to give self-serve tool as well to the data owner, to our organization, so that they can, on their own, they can basically look into the data sets and look for that. If there is a potential sensitive data unmasked, or there is anything getting exposed to unauthorized entity. So we thought through this one, and see, we have data contracts in place. We have DBT models in place for our data pipelines. We do have tagging also in place. So we do tag columns in the contract left-hand side of the pipeline and make sure that we don't expose those. But as you know, nothing is 100% foolproof kind of, So that's where we wanted to see how can we approach where that needles are there, missing kind of entities or missing needles are there. How can we grab those or bubble those out? And that's where we look through the solutioning of that problem, which is basically classifying the data through our classifier. So we looked through the solutions, multiple solutions. We checked our data hub, some other tools, how best we can approach for this solution. As I said, we have behind the scene, we have masking policies, row level access policies. All those policies are there. We apply that to tag. But to make sure we utilize this solution of classifying data automatically from the data sets, we start looking into the different options, which is basically one of these you see on the slide is about Snowflake classification, which comes with Snowflake classifier. But this itself was not sufficient for us, because we do have some custom specific classifications for us also, which is specific to our organization, specific to our basically domains. So if you see the highlighted ones, they are kind of custom classifiers, some of the custom classifiers we have in our organization. And some which are not highlighted, we could able to map with out-of-box Snowflake classification. So we thought then, okay, let's take that solution and make hybrid kind of, marry these two things, which is basically define some custom classifiers and then also use out-of-box option. And that's where we started defining custom classifier. One of the example for this custom classifier for those classifications is here. As you know, this basically accelerate your data classification effort. If you define the custom classification, you don't need to worry about your organization specific data spread. So you could easily detect that spread with these kind of classifiers, which are custom classifiers. Basically, you need to see like what is the data spread you have in your entity or in column, yeah, and define the classifier with regex as well as threshold. And behind the scene, basically it uses scoring algorithm. We try to put our threshold low. So there could be like some false positive may come in the data set, but that's okay because we need to review first. And then we built on that, like, okay, if these are kind of false positive, then we filter out those categories when we do classification. So this is how we tried using these custom classifiers for our process. If you see, I just wanted to take you through like overall flow kind of, of what we achieved with this custom way of doing, as we had like multiple domains, around 51 domains, pouring data into data lake, passing into the pipelines, bringing it to the Snowflake, and then exposing out for transform layer as well through dbt. So this is overall process. So what we did, we created tasks for each domain. Currently we run on monthly cadence, but we can change the frequency as we want. So yeah, here is like high level first build what we started with, okay. So we define our custom procedure. Basically this used those hybrid way of classification. We scan all the entities from our instance. That is our first scan we did. Part of that, we push those results of the scan into the results table. That is basically parent level data, which will have your scan results in JSON format into variant column of data type, So that is one level, first level of scanning we did. After that, we wanted to make that user friendly, like because it's a JSON format may not be useful for end user to review or look into. So we added one more step after that, basically breaking that into the column level entity. So that's where the next procedure is like results atoms does basically. So coming to the next phase. So as we built initial part, like initial scan will be big scan because we had to scan through all the instance, Though we started with that and put into the like output into Excel part of first phase, like putting into Excel, sending that to domains for review to see how the spread looks. Is the classification is working for us or not? And that's where we tried, like, then we got response like review feedback from domains, and we could able to relate like, okay, whatever we have defined that's a hybrid solution working good. So we started pushing that results into the audit table, okay? And then we excluded Excel part in our incremental or next phase of build. So that's where we came to the next phase of using that audit table. And this audit table basically is having like user-friendly content, which can be exposed for end user or domain owners to see the data. And that's where Nigel will take you through the next phase of how we use this audit table through our detective tool, which is Streamlit. To just give you a high level, like how data looks, In results table, if you see, we have like the JSON format, which is not that user friendly to look at, but for end user perspective, okay, I'm talking about it. So, and this one is like how we built the table, audit table, which will have like all the details with what is the classification, what is the confidence, coverage, and all those details are there, okay? Just backend how we store the data. Part of this, as I mentioned, like first time was a big scan, but we wanted to optimize further, So we don't want to scan again and again. So one of the things we started here is basically how can we detect the schema change, okay, for the entity or a table? Because if we don't have schema change, then we don't need to worry about scanning that table again because there is nothing changed kind of. So what we do, we use basically hash act function and then try to create a hash key for the table using basically data columns and then data types, those things. And we are able to basically create that hash key and then compare that with our next scan. So whenever we are doing rescan, we make sure that, okay, if the hash key is same, don't need to worry. Just skip that and go for the next kind of entity. That's how we started optimizing the scan. Incremental scan took very, like initial scan, he will explain how we had like big 4 or 5 days of time, but incremental scan is finishing in like hours kind of. So coming to optimization again, we have some additional things to look at. I mean, we are looking into like few additional things to optimize and how we can improve this this process. We'll discuss that also at the end of the towards end. How are our thought process on that basically. Next one is actually I just wanted to wrap up basically how this takeaway from like custom process versus out of box. Yeah, as I mentioned, there are few out of box options available there from Snowflake. Means in the sense from like scanning perspective at schema level, or there is a view available to see the results. Those things are there, but the thing is, you see, there is some limitation. Like classification profile, if you use at schema level, it scans all the tables in the schema. It will not be selective scan. Okay, so we don't want it to do that. Also, there is some like problem with not problem, I would say there is requirement if you use classifiers which are custom classifiers, then we need to do auto tag is equal to true. Then only it applies or scans results according to those tags. So we wanted to we don't want it to directly apply tag to table. We are doing that in our contracts, left hand side of the pipeline. We don't want to do that directly onto table. Even in DBT model, we do that not onto table of transform schemas kind of. So that part we try to cover with our custom classification. We use the basic function which is called system classify, and that is a basic we can scan at any level like database, table, schema, selective scanning. Yeah, so that we could able to do. Again, out of box, if you have that latest view which is data classification latest view, that view don't store the results like history. It will be only the latest record, and that will be also available after delay of like up to 3 hours. Okay, so you cannot get that results immediately, but with our results table we immediately push that result into that table and have that scan readily available for our next step or next phase. Also, if table gets dropped, we don't have that record in view, out of box view, so we'll miss that scan history as well as the details. That's where we try to overcome some of the problems or the limitations we had with auto scanning with our custom process. And as you see, like we could able to bubble up few, like not many needles, but there were few needles we could able to catch for our domains, and they could able to easily review that. With this, I wanted to wrap up this behind the scene process and take you through the next phase of our journey. Nigel will take you to Streamlit, which is our detective tool, how we build that and how it is working with domain owners. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mangesh, and hopefully you got some inspiration there, depending on how you're doing kind of tagging and masking. Like you got some ideas about how you might go about using some of the resources available, and maybe thinking about custom classifications as well. It wouldn't be a Streamlit and Snowflake detective story though without talking about Streamlit. I think the speaker from Snowflake that was in track 2 here briefly mentioned what Streamlit was before lunch. But Streamlit is really cool if you're like not a front-end developer and you want to build something really quickly to serve up some data, especially. It's really kind of data friendly. I want to just remind us though where we are in the flow. So Mangesh mentioned the classification flow earlier, and we got down as far as this kind of audit table, which kind of showed the column level information that a domain owner might need to review. What happened was for that first scan, we had the Excel table, and some of the domain owners were interacting with that, and it worked kind of fairly well, but it was a bit clunky. Wasn't very automated. It was quite a big spreadsheet, to be honest. So we thought we could kind of do better. So we went back to kind of like what kind of further enhancements could we do. So we built a PI data detection, kind of just a UI basically in Streamlit that domain owners can interact with. And the thing about Snowflake is they do role-based access control really, really well. So if I'm a domain owner and I log in and I open up the Streamlit app, I'll see the data that's kind of relevant to me immediately. I don't need to kind of open up all the kind of other data that I don't really care about. And in terms of like where we are in terms of our data kind of maturity, we have a kind of a federated data ecosystem. If you were at some of the earlier talks where people were kind of saying, are you kind of centralized? We're not really. We have pretty mature domains across the organization, so we kind of expect them to be like self-service as much as possible. So I want to talk a little bit about why Streamlit and why do we kind of shift from Excel. So with Excel, as I say, it worked, but it wasn't fantastic. We thought we could do better from a kind of a user experience perspective for our domain owners, and we've got many different like domains across the organization, as Mangesh said. We also though wanted to kind of utilize, warehouses. So we can kind of, we are kind of keen on, data FinOps as well. So we do have to kind of be able to show like how much things are costing. So that kind of falls to our team, and we use a tool called select.dev to kind of bubble up, some of the costings that we have across the organization. So having a dedicated warehouse for this kind of classifier app was useful as well. We also have like different roles. So again, using the role-based access control, like the owner of this Streamlit app has more permissions than the user of the Streamlit app. So the user can interact with the app, but they can't change the code, change the filtering, whatever. So we can kind of lock it down a little bit from that perspective. And as I said, like we want people to be as self-service as possible. So that was kind of one of our intentions. And I think the Streamlit app, I'll show it to you in a second. I've got a little demo. Really kind of try to keep it as simple as possible and hook into kind of our existing workflows. So Mangesh mentioned like, shifting left, we've got data contracts. And then in our transformation layer, we have like tagging of fields if necessary. So we wanted people to kind of plug into those and take action if they needed to. So in terms of the setup, we've got some SQL to set up the deployment. So you see that we make sure we have a warehouse available. We have kind of database and schema set. We have those two roles that I mentioned, the user role, the owner, role of the app, and also the Streamlit user role. And in terms of deployment, there's no kind of surprises there. Like if you're used to kind of software, kind of CI/CD kind of pipelines, you'll see we build a Docker image. We have some unit testing and some linting. In the deployment itself, we have kind of two stages. So we have deployment to a staging area, which is really just a different database that only our team has access to. So we can kind of jump in and play with the app and see it's working okay. In terms of production, then we kind of send that to a different database, and then that's opened up to those user roles that you can see on screen. So that's kind of how we do the deployment. In terms of what the app looks like then, just a little, I was told not to do a live demonstration. That's kind of bad juju, like for first talk at a conference. So I've just recorded the app kind of opening up, and this is just in a test domain. So there's no PI being exposed here or anything sensitive. But you can see if there is potential PI detected via the classifiers that Mangesh kind of showed you, it will show up in this kind of table as a record. So what we're asking the domain owners to do, you'll see the workflow for the domain owners. If they see some sort of record in this app when they open it up, we're asking them to go and actually check the data itself. So go and look at the data in that table or in that view and verify, like, is this actually PI or is this a false positive? Because we did get some false positives, let's be honest. We set the threshold in terms of sensitivity like quite low, so it detected detected stuff that wasn't necessarily PI. Give you an example. It detected like a country field. I think it was like Australia or New Zealand. So we only operate across Australia and New Zealand. So I think it picked up a country field and said this is PI. Well, if you can identify an individual from Australia, good luck. So that's one example. So the workflow for them is if they do see something and they think it is PI and it's been missed somehow, then they have to go back. If it's coming into our raw schema, they go back and adjust the data contract and they tag that field as PI. If it's in the transform layer, then they go and adjust the DBT model. So, and they're quite used to doing that because that's part of their kind of current workflow already. So if it's not PI, then they'd reach out to our support channel. Like we don't have an automated way for them to kind of dismiss something. They have to kind of reach out and tell us this is not PI, and we can kind of have a quick review, and then we'll remove that record from the table and they won't have to deal with it ever again. So that's kind of the workflow and how the app works. In terms of our findings, I think some of you may have some questions like around, well, did they actually find any PI? And I wanted to kind of talk about those a little bit. So in answer to that question, yes, there was some potential PI found in the cloud data warehouse, and that was like, it varied across different domains. I think one of the positive things though that I wanted to kind of talk about is the fact that if we find a record, the domain owners actually took action. So after that first kind of initial scan, which took about 4 days, the domain owners responded really well. We actually saw people taking action and going and reviewing the data and either dismissing it, saying this is not PI, or telling us actually we're going to tag this. So we got an 18% reduction overall. I can't give you the overall figures because obviously that's kind of a bit sensitive, and it's also an ongoing kind of process for the organization. But in terms of like costs, you might be wondering, well, did that 4-day scan, how much did that cost? Again, it wasn't, it was definitely a blip in terms of our costings for our Snowflake kind of annual contract in terms of like number of credits that we have, but it wasn't out of the ordinary. Like it didn't blow the budget. We weren't too concerned. But in saying that, as Mangesh said, we didn't want to run an entire scan every time. So we've optimized that down to like just under 3 hours once a month. So it runs, and it costs somewhere in the order of $100 to $200 to run that scan. So it's not too bad. We're pretty happy. We can do better though. I think as Mangesh said, like we have some further thoughts about optimization. So we have been talking to Snowflake, like we do work with them pretty closely, and they have a really good like support kind of channel. This is not sponsored by Snowflake. This is just my dealings with the company. So one of the things they mentioned to us was, well, could we look at streaming as an option? Perhaps we could look at like just getting that kind of change data capture. We could reduce maybe the amount of scanning that we have to do that way. We are looking at maybe could we build a view just from that column change? So if we could just grab the new column and just scan that as like a delta, that would be awesome as well. We could cut down on the amount of scanning that we do in that monthly scan. Another option might be like instead of deploying this app to a warehouse, we could potentially use some of the Snowflake native containers and just deploy there and see could that cut down on some of our costs as well. So we've got a few ideas up our sleeve. We haven't kind of settled on like what direction we might go next, but we're kind of actively thinking about it. So with that, I'm just going to hand you back to Mangesh just to wrap things up.
Yep. Thanks, Nigel, taking through the last phase of our journey in the sense like the so far. We are going to continue our journey as mentioned, like going to optimize further and helping our organization not to expose those, unmasked things out kind of to unauthorized user. And as I said, like we are taking security very, very, very seriously. So that's all from our side. Thank you very much. As you see, we do have we are hiring. So if you are welcome to join us, and our LinkedIn profiles are there. We'll be around for rest of our conference. We can discuss. If there are any questions, time we can take few. Yeah. Thank you.